Got my notes all together.
Sweet, cool. Last time we did our bottom 7, right?
Yep.
Cool. So I got Jupiter's Darling, Beautiful Broken, Red Velvet Car, Fanatic, Private Audition, Magazine, and then the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've switched something.
I had a feeling. Hi everyone, we're starting here. I I had a feeling because the one that you had at the end of the episode, I was like, I feel like that one's probably better. It needs to be in the top half.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that because this is part 2 of Heart. Welcome everybody to Cranked and Ranked. It's Heart 2. One of those things.
Heart Bart Pop Tart.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm hungry.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. So Cranked and Ranked. If you're checking out part 2, you probably already know what this is. But if not, a podcast, YouTube show where we rank band discographies and do other stuff. But right now we're ranking the discography of Heart, and this is part 2 because they got what 15 albums altogether.
Something like yeah, 15 main studio albums.
15 Heart albums because there is that Love Mongers. Was a Love Mongers Christmas, and there's something else that's Love Mongers as well.
Yeah,
which is essentially Nan and Nancy. Nan and Nancy. Anyway, that's when they switched heads. And anyway, Heart. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm so out of it. I feel like I feel like a train that is just slightly off the track. I'm still moving in the right direction, but it's like I'm lagging and there's like sparks flying and stuff. But hi, I'm Old Head. With me as always, Eddie Sparxx.
That's me. I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is it better with or without?
Because, I like with. I don't.
I'm just wondering if I look a little too like Luna from Bear in the Big Blue House, like
what? But turn it
moon looking ass over here.
Turn it off again. Let's figure this out.
Do I look? Basically, what I'm asking is, do I look like the moon from the Mighty Boosh?
No, you're not that bright.
Okay, I don't look like a vanilla rapist.
Michael Collins.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I feel like this looks cozier, but I'm unsure.
Yeah, that's fine. We can see you fine. You're not as white. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. I look a little more tanned here. We're sticking with that with this episode.
I mean, we are the whitest podcast in the history of. I mean, how much more white can you get than a dude from Texas and a dude from Cornwall? I mean, it's
maybe a right-leaning version of what we do.
That's true. That would be awful. Anyway, so yeah, the Heart Part 2. So we've got our top 8 Heart albums. And as you heard at the beginning of this, Eddie's swapped around a little bit. So I guess that's probably where we should start. Because I don't know the best way to approach that. Because did you literally just swap an 8 and a 9? Or is there...
Yeah,
okay,
it's an 8 and 9 sitch. So
well, let's just jump right into that because last time I believe your number 9 was Baby Lestrange, correct?
Yes,
which I think is a great album.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, everything 9 onward, I fucking love.
Okay, so yeah, let's start off.
Critiques.
Yeah, let's start off with what ended up becoming number 9,
Number
and then
nine.
we'll get back on track. Two
Quick
number
question.
nines.
A number nine large, a number six with extra dip, a number seven, two number 45s, one with cheese, and a large soda.
Are you man? We're gonna have to celebrate when that new GTA comes out.
Hell yeah. Yes.
I don't. I mean, I'm sure I won't be able to play it because I don't have any system to play it on. But maybe I'll jump in onto Twitch or something and watch people play it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to get an idea for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that. But yeah, what was your number nine again? Was it Dog and Butterfly? I'm trying to remember if it
Yes.
was.
Yes. Dog and Butterfly was my number 9.
Okay, well we've matched up then because my number nine is now Dog and Butterfly.
All right.
So
Cool. Cool.
Baby Lestrange is now my 8. Dog and Butterfly is my number 9.
All right. Cool.
Okay, so basically this album's kind of split down the middle with, if you want to call it, the rock side and the folky side. Because if you want to look at it, Dog and Butterfly, you got the bark bark and you've got the pretty little thing over here. So opening up with Cook with Fire, like, hell yeah, they do. This bangs. High Time. High Time is a cool track. Hijinks is a swaggering bluesy one. Straight On is incredible. That's a great song, great 70s rock song. I love the jangly chorus effecty bits in the chorus. Just great stuff. And then flip it over to side B, or side Butterfly, if you want to call it that. You got the title track, Dog and Butterfly, is a soothing title track. Lighter Touch is vibey ballad zone. Nada One is more vibey balladage. See, this is where the album's like sequencing, I feel it doesn't lend itself to a bit more of a modern advantage. I feel like, as time went on, people kind of sequenced albums as an entire thing, whereas back in the 70s you had bands like Led Zeppelin. With Led Zeppelin 3, they had like a rock side and a acoustic side pretty much on that album, which is cool if you're going for that, but sequencing wise, unless you're in that zone, it can be a bit of a trip up. That being said, Mistral Wind is a heavy Stone Temple Pilots song before Stone Temple Pilots were, adults.
Yeah.
But those jangly, vibey parts over the heavy bits remind me of Cora era Stone Temple Pilots, and I fucking adore that album. So as far as I'm concerned, that's massive praise from me.
Yeah.
Might be my favorite song on the album next to Straight On. But yeah, I am with you. This for me was also like the first Heart album where I was like, okay, they're doing what they, logically this is the next step. They did really well with Lil Queen, and they were like, let's fucking do that, but 1978ified. So yeah, that's my number 9, making Baby Lestrange my number 8.
Let's do that real quick though, because obviously for most of what Eddie said about Baby Lestrange, you can hear it or did hear it in part 1. But before we move on to my number 8, what changed? Like, what is it about Baby Lestrange that all of a sudden put it above Dog and Butterfly?
I went over it again and listened to it on its own rather than boshing through all of the albums, because I'd kind of set myself early in the week to just listen to all these albums in fast succession. I do like 4 at a time. So by number 4, I was kind of like, kind of hearted out a little bit. So upon re-listening to it, actually, I was like, you know what, this is a killer rock and roll album. And with that, I got some updated notes on that.
Yeah, let's do it.
You got Baby Lestrange. It has just some sexy ass riffage in it. Down on Me. Yes, ma'am. Silver Wheels. Yeah, yeah. Silver Wheels is a cool instrumental interlude. Break is a wild song. Love that track. On the CD version, there's a live version of Break at the end of the album, and that kicks ass.
Hmm.
Rockin' Heaven Down, love the outro in that song. Even It Up kicks major ass. Strange Night is a rockin' song. Raised on You is this like bouncy piano led rock and roller. Pilot's this ballad kind of track, and Sweet Darling is this very ballady closer, which ends the album nicely with a nice little bow on it.
Yeah,
Um, all in all, I will say it is my favorite album cover of all of the albums
yeah.
because
I
for
can.
obvious reasons.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah,
cool. Well, that's great that one ended up that one's actually higher for me.
you'll got an
My
Eddie Sparxx double bill with this intro. So yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. My number 8 is Bad Animals from 1987.
Okay.
So I do enjoy the 80s heart stuff because I like that
Mhm.
stuff in general. Like that the 80s, big, pop rockish kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. This one though ends up like being the bottom of this half because it kind of takes what they were doing with Heart, the self-titled Heart album,
Hmm.
continuing with this more 80s polished pop rock kind of thing. But what they've done now is it's a little bit more keyboard heavy, and they've softened the guitars to where sometimes they're very like, don't worry, it's safe in here. The guitars are quiet.
Yeah.
It sounds barely like rock music sometimes, but
Mm.
it does have, Alone, which is like one of their biggest songs ever. Um, and, but I think the big problem with this one is that it's two things. First off, it doesn't have a very good energy because of the way it's produced. It's not energetic enough for me. It's not, Heart needs a little bit of an edge, and Bad Animals is as unedgy as I think they got, really. Um,
It was very very polished
yeah,
production
and,
wise, that album.
and and not only that, they're in this point now where a lot of bands were doing this, where they were collaborating with songwriters, and in Heart's case, sometimes not even collaborating. Other people just wrote the songs and then they played the songs. And in comparison to the self-titled album and this one really sounds like they're just doing other people's songs. There's something about this album that sounds like they're doing cover songs. And
Mm.
it's disappointing, but on top of that, it's disappointing because it's 1987 and I feel like, well, they had hits, so who the fuck am I? But I think it would have been better if they had embraced the hair metal thing more, turned up the guitars and tried to make it a little more of a, I don't know, anthemic hard rock tunes as opposed to trying to write crossover pop songs or trying to get writers to write crossover pop
Yeah.
songs. So it's lacking a lot. Like it's like a Heart album, but it doesn't feel very genuine. It really sort of feels like a pop music factory that they got Ann and Nancy Wilson to put their stamp on it, and then it got put out. It doesn't really feel much like a band or a legitimate rock album. It just is kind of 90s pop or 80s pop, which is fine. I have no problem with 80s pop, but in this particular case, the albums that kind of bookend it are
Yeah.
much, much stronger to me. So Bad Animals ends up being number 8.
Cool. Well, with that, I'm going to move on to my number 7 with a 90s album.
Oh, okay.
And which 90s album is it going to be?
What? It's not Brigade. It's got to be the other one.
Bingo. Desire Walks On.
Desire Walks On. That's it.
Yep. And this is the one with Blaine Staley on it because it's 1993 and they're both from Seattle, of course. But, it sounds like it's got one foot in the 80s and one foot in the 90s, which has always been something I like a lot. But this album has its cracks, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really grown on me, I will say. Um, back in black. No, not back in black. Black on black. Sorry. Uh, the black
now that
on
now
black.
that now that you mention it, I'm pretty sure that she's covered it before. But man, Ann Wilson singing AC/DC songs, that sounds like it'd be tasty.
Yeah,
Like just yeah.
I'd pay good money to see that. Actually, that'd
I
kick
mean,
ass.
she's done a handful of cover songs in her time. I don't. I bet you she's done an AC/DC song at some point, but I don't know.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I'm gonna look up on YouTube. She could pull it off as well. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
incredible vocalist. But Black on Black is this chugging triplet rocker that is a very clear nod to Barracuda, but with an updated sound. That dun 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 feel they were
Yeah.
definitely going for. Well, it worked in the 70s. We're out of the 80s now, so it
Yeah.
might work. Back to Avalon is this like folk rock power ballady country-ish track. The Woman in Me, this song is sexy as hell. Love this song. Yeah. Anne's voice sounds incredible. Love the keyboard part in there. Rage, heavy ass Zeppelin-esque rocker. I wish the chorus had a bit more to it, but hearing Anne just go absolutely savage is just chef's kiss. It's
Yeah.
enough. In Walks the Night is a big old power ballad. My Crazy Head's a cool song. Ring Them Bells. Oh, hi, Lane. Even though I would consider this a missed opportunity with
Yes.
having Lane on it. It's still a really good showcase of what a good vocalist he really was. Because
Yeah.
even though I would have preferred, much like you, for them to have done a heavier song with Lane in the vein of Alice in Chains, something heavy grunge sort of thing. You still hear what a great singer he was on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Will You Be There in the Morning? Underrated power ballad. Had it come out 3 or 4 years earlier, it would have been huge. Voodoo Doll is a cool, trippy song. Anything is possible. Sorry, it's a cool song. Desire Walks On is a great closer. Honestly, like this album has been growing on me lately. I feel like I have uncovered a little secret gem with this album because I'd never really taken to it before, but now I'm kind of in this like mid 90s deep dive at the minute where I'm discovering actually, some of these, albums from older bands during the 90s. There's some cool stuff out there, and this album's full of songs I really liked. That being said, though, when you're talking about a catalog as chock full of killer stuff as Heart,
Yeah.
I need to somewhat set my biases aside and say, hey, look, there's 6 albums above this that I just cannot justify going any lower
Yeah.
than this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the moment we hit magazine, it's just 10 incredible albums in my list. So with that, that's my number 7 with Desire Walks On.
Okay. My number 7, we're staying in the sort of the same zone for me. Brigade from 1990. So they're continuing the same kind of thing here, where it's random songwriters. Some they collaborated with, some they didn't. I like Brigade has a much better energy to it than
Yeah.
Bad Animals. and
The guitars are back up in the mix for a start.
the guitars are louder. And you know what, I didn't know. I found this out when I was researching this album. Is that All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You was written by Mutt Lange, and I
Hmm.
did not know that. I mean, I knew he wrote songs. He wrote songs for plenty of artists, but I did not know that was a Mutt Lange song. But you know, that was another big hit for them, and I really think that while Brigade is an improvement over Bad Animals, it still kind of feels like a bunch of hired guns were tasked with keeping Heart in the charts. And so all the songs
Yeah.
feel like a swing at making a hit song. And, you know, they succeeded. They had a huge hit. And the album did well. But I just think that a lot of them are a little bit forgettable if you're not just kind of enjoying the 80s vibe still continuing in the 90s. And
Yeah.
it's a little too long also.
It
And
is quite a lengthy album. Yeah.
but yeah, so it once again, like it's I really think that Hart nailed this this sort of 80s thing with the self-titled one, and then these next two that followed it, just they didn't quite have the charm.
Mm.
And it's, I think it's because they didn't really go too far away from that formula. Whereas, like, another band that comes to mind that was doing the same thing at the time is Aerosmith. But if you look at Permanent Vacation versus Pump, those are very different albums. They're both
Yeah.
Aerosmith albums and they're both rock albums, but they're you know, yet like Permanent Vacation really does feel like they're figuring out how to like collaborate with songwriters and stuff, but Pump feels way more like they just went like, I don't know, they if there's, it feels like they hit a fucking stride and there's just so much energy and great songwriting on that, and it doesn't feel like just trying to make hits. It feels like trying to make a good album. And I think that's the difference, is that making hit songs great, you know, puts food on the table, and you know, money in your bank account or whatever. But it's less interesting to me because I don't hear, I don't hear an album. I hear a collection of well crafted songs by other people. So,
Yeah.
but at least it feels more rockin'. So that's why it goes above. It goes above Bad Animals because there's at least a better rock vibe, and I enjoy the 80s slash rock, you know, kind of vibe thing always.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's my number. What are we on, 7? That's my number 7.
Yeah. Yeah. That's number 7. Cool. So that brings me to my number 6. And boy, oh boy, did this album move around my list like fucking crazy. Because, like, whenever I found myself listening to it, I'm not going to give it away just yet. I found myself thinking, this is very much up my street. However, there are things to it that lend it to being a little lower on this list. Most notably, the polishing and toning down of the edgier elements.
All right, I know where we're
And
going.
my number 6 is Bad Animals. Now, if
Okay.
you'd have asked me a couple days ago, right after I'd listened to it, I'd have put it at like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because it's not an album that I don't enjoy by any means. I fucking love it.
Hmm.
But, when it comes to, stacking it next to the rest of these albums, this is one of the hardest rankings I've ever had to do. Because there's so much great stuff here that I can never really say is bad. It's just really well performed and often very well written stuff that's
Yeah.
just all really good. The problem is, and I'm with you on this, and it's relatively well known too that at this point they have got outside songwriters. They're being externally morphed into this MTV thing.
Yeah.
Not to mention that during this era, they did some like Anne was really struggling with her weight, and they really treated her in a nasty way, like the whole MTV thing around it.
I'm
Uh,
trying to remember which music video it is, but I think it might be one off of this one where only the shots of Anne, it's they compressed the image.
yeah,
They're not even
yeah.
trying to hide that. They literally just went, just compress the image and make it look weird just so she doesn't look so fat.
That might
Just
be
like
that might be there's the girl. I think
it's
that
just
might be because she's
it's just a,
behind like a bunch of shit too. She's behind like a bunch of this like set piece that's all like
yeah.
metal hubcaps and bars and shit, and
It might be
she's the
that
like,
one, but even when it's just like a close up of her head singing, it's all scrunched in, and I'm just
yeah,
like, who's the asshole that made that call? you know,
yeah,
because that's like it's. I mean, that's because I'm not one of those people that shits on MTV because MTV I think was very good for a lot of things.
mm.
But those kind of things when it really got to the point where
It was
they
all image at one point.
they were overlooking artists or tossing aside artists based on how they looked. And I understand that it's a visual medium, but that went too far. And
Yeah,
that's my only problem with any of that stuff is that I'm just like the visual thing is to see the artists that are doing the songs, not to just see pretty artists. I mean, but and
yeah,
so that got lost. And so that every time I see that, I feel bad for Anne because I'm just like, man, she's got enough problems, and now a video comes out and they're very clearly just saying you're fat, with the video,
yeah,
and it's ridiculous. But anyway, yeah,
yeah.
I hate shit like that.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, that woman's always been beautiful. So
Yeah,
wait, I don't give a shit about that. You know,
nah, nah.
uh, uh, I like curves anyway. So yeah, with that, bad animals. I'm gonna dive right into this. Obviously, it's the one with Alone on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which next to Barracuda is their signature song. Like this is their signature song of this era of Heart in the 80s. It's like the big one. They had a lot of big ones, but this is the big one,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I know. But the album kicks off with Who You Run To, which is, as far as I'm concerned, an underrated song. It's a great track, great pop rock anthem. Alone goes without saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's the girl. Now, this song for me, just this isn't on GTA Vice City, but this song really does put me in that zone. Those like lush synths do evoke that image of just cruising down a Miami street in a sunset. Like
Yeah.
there's just something about this song that takes me to another place. Driving a white Testarossa in a pastel suit, that'd be killer. Um, but then this is where the album really gets into the big ballads with massive choruses,
Mm-hmm.
zone. They're definitely swinging for a formula on this album. You
Yeah.
know, I Want You So Bad is this contemplative ballad. Wait for an Answer has this massive chorus on it. It's a great song. Bad Animals is a love this song. You Ain't So Tough is, as far as I'm concerned, an underrated track. Strangers of the Heart has some great synth stuff on it. Easy Target is badass. Love Easy Target. And RSVP is this big old closer. And it's very clear that if we're gonna call Heart 1985 that album, if we're gonna call that their hair metal album, this is their like AOR album
Yeah.
where the guitars and the guitar to keyboard ratio, we have guitar here, we have keyboard here, on this scale.
Yeah.
One is significantly more prominent than the other, which I think gives the album its own vibe. But if we're talking about their quote unquote glam metal trilogy, this is definitely the weakest all round, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Although one thing I will say is it is shorter than Brigade, so in that way
It's
it
got that
has
going
that
for it.
over it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I was saying, it's a great album, but is it a great heart album compared to the five I've put above it?
Yeah. I agree with all that.
That being said, it's a pop rock album from 1987, so I love it by default.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, my number 6 is Magazine
Woohoo.
from 77 or 78, depending on what you're listening to. So this was their second album, but like we talked about it yesterday, where there was a last episode, yesterday for us. There was a
Gaslight all of our listeners into thinking it's not
yeah.
really shit.
You just think that 2 weeks have passed, but no, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's
You're
only been a day.
crazy.
It's only been one day. There was a rough history to this album, and it was put out without their not really without their permission, but they really didn't have a final say in it. The record label just put it out, so they ended up going back and re-recording some things, reordering songs, and putting their version out in '78, which is the same album cover and title and all that shit. So it's an interesting album because you look at it on a whole and you're like, well, it's a step down from Dreamboat Danny. And that's true, but there's something about I guess the momentum of a band like this when they were doing these early albums, where this kind of thing, where it is like 5 original songs, one of them is under 2 minutes long, and then some live, songs and covers or whatever. But it's still, you put it together and you put it on, it's still a fucking really entertaining and fun 70s rock album.
Absolutely.
And so there's something to be said about that. And so I kind of like the thrown together aspect of it, just because it feels almost like a B-sides album or something, and it's kind of cool. But the interesting thing that I learned about this that has nothing to do with Heart. So they do a cover of Without You, the song Without You. And I was always led to believe that was written by Harry Nilsson. And it wasn't. It was written by the band Badfinger. It's an original song by Badfinger. And I always thought Harry Nilsson wrote it and Badfinger covered it, but it's the other way around. Wow. And so I'm just like, that's interesting, because that's a fucking beautiful song. And Badfinger's a good band. If you the fun fact, I believe they were the first band signed to Apple Records, the Beatles label, if I'm remembering correctly, because I think they signed like James Taylor or something first. I don't know if it was James Taylor. Anyway, that save that for the Beatles episode. But yeah. So I like the Heart cover of Without You, because you can't go wrong with a song like that with Ann Wilson singing it. Mm. So yeah, and so Magazine is clearly it's easily looked at as a transitional album, not just musically speaking, but also literally what was everything going on with the band. It's like transitions personified or whatever, musicified in an album. And I find that enjoyable. I don't know. I think maybe there's a little bit of that thing that I wasn't old enough where, when I wasn't even born in 77, but 78 I was alive, but I wasn't old enough to really get to experience the music climate of that time. And so I think I do get a little bit of enjoyment from just things like this, because I'm like, oh, this is cool. This has got a little story behind it. And this is not your normal kind of album. And it happened in the 70s. And I don't know. It makes me enjoy it a lot more. So it's not amazing, but it's still Heart being a fucking cool band. They did 3 albums in a row where I will say like that they were fucking cool as fuck. And then,
Yeah.
they kind of went through these periods of figuring out who they were and doing good things and kind of good things and okay things. But around this period, I just look at them. I mean, they're cool as fuck. So that's my number 6 magazine.
Very nice. Okay, so we're in the top five zone
Top
now.
5.
Top five zone, and I think it's time to take it back to day one
Oh,
with my number 5, which is Dreamboat Annie.
okay.
Uh, this is a brilliant album, just extremely well crafted. Isn't
Mhm.
it like there's such a vibe through this album, especially with this like Dreamboat Annie trilogy going through it. There's several of these reprise moments
Yeah,
on it, but I mean, kicking it off with Magic Man, like
yeah.
killer. It's as mystic as it is yummy.
Man,
um,
that's one of those songs that I feel like it's been used multiple times in movies to alert you that you're now in the 70s. Like you'll hear that, it'll go into the next scene. Some
yeah,
movie that goes throughout time periods. If they're getting into the 70s, that is a good song to start and be like, boom, you are in the 70s now. Listen to
yeah.
it. This is the sounds of the 70s.
Everything is orange, beige, and sepia. But yeah, it's killer. Dreamboat Annie, Fantasy Child, is a short folky number and the first of, like I say, the Power of Three kind of trilogy on this album. Keeps kind of a theme running through it. And then right after that, we've already had Magic Man. You Get
Hmm.
Crazy on You, which is
Yep.
just a certified 70s rock classic.
Yeah.
Soul of the Sea is a cool song. Absolutely love White Lightning and Wine. Awesome song. Um, Love Me Like Music. I'll Be Your Song is our second brackets parentheses song on the album, whatever you want to call it, and it's cool. Sing Child is this awesome rocking song. How Deep It Goes is cool. And finally, you get Dreamboat Annie reprise, which wraps up the album in a nice little bow. I, I might have forgotten to put the actual Dreamboat Annie song in my notes. Dreamboat Annie's really cool too. There's 3 of those tracks. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, 70s Heart often strikes me as the female counterpart to Led Zeppelin. Like, sure, they hit you with some serious rock songs, but there is that strong folk influence in there too.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, coming right out of the gate with an album like this is a great first album.
Hmm.
Uh, and it stands as one of their best because it's just so well crafted,
Yeah.
weaving that vibe throughout. Awesome. Love it. Love everything about it.
Sweet.
That is, yeah, that's my number 5.
Yeah. We're for me. We're now in the love zone. For me, I think
Nice.
these are all great albums. But yeah, this one might be way higher up for you. My number 5 is the self-titled Heart album from 1985.
Then yes, it
Um,
is.
um, and so this one came out like 10 years after their first album. Yeah.
Roughly, yeah.
And
No, no, yeah,
and
you're right. Yeah.
and we talked about it before. This is the where they're first collaborating with other songwriters, and it's got the hits on it. What About Love, Never, These Dreams. Those are songs I heard on the radio a lot.
Yeah.
It's very 80s sounding, and honestly, I think that I have a little bit of nostalgia for this, like a childhood nostalgia, just because I remember hearing songs from this album a lot on the radio.
Yeah.
Um, and Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, really, it is like I just like it because it's a very well done '80s rock album with big old hit songs on it, and um, it's great because it's like And sometimes I forget that it was 85. I don't know why I always hear these and I think that it's a little bit later in the 80s, but
Maybe they were just, trailblazing at this
that's what I'm
point.
saying. Like, I feel like it's a little bit ahead of its time for that level of polished pop rock stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they would get more polished, obviously. But this is one of those albums where it's the same thing that I'll say about some of their '70s stuff, where along with the bangers, the rest of it is just a vibe, and it's a vibe
Mhm.
that it's really difficult to recreate it now because even with modern technology and trying to replicate sounds, it's never really going to sound like the 80s. It's always there's a difference between sounding 80s and sounding like the 80s. And so I think with
Yes.
with Heart,
Yeah.
it feels and sounds like 1985. It's not, you putting filters and stuff or whatever in your program to make it sound that way. But and so I enjoy that. I enjoy a snapshot of a time of music that um I was a kid and I was soaking up all of this stuff or whatever. But yeah, so I just really enjoy it. I just think that there's not an enjoyable moment on this album if you're looking for 80s rock music that sounds 80s rock. It's
Yeah.
you can't do a lot better than the self-titled Heart album. So that's my number
Yeah.
5.
Cool. Yeah. So that brings me to my number four.
Number 4.
And fuck, man, I'm
Uh-oh.
looking at my,
Uh-oh.
I'm looking at my list, and I'm wondering to myself, you know, I'm gonna do a little switcheroo,
Oh shit.
and you're not gonna find out what that is
We're
until
never gonna know.
yeah. Well, you are gonna know. You're gonna know shortly.
Oh,
But with that, I thought I was being a little unfair to another era there.
got it.
So I'm being completely fair and honest with myself,
Okay.
which leads to my number four being 1983's Passion Works,
Okay.
the
Yep.
most underrated Heart album in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't hear people talk about it.
Yeah. I feel like it's the 80s sounding Heart album that people don't bring up
Yeah.
because, like, right after this album, you get the self titled.
Yeah.
Therefore, like, this to me sounds like them transitioning into the 80s as of 1983. So,
Yeah.
like, the new wavy album oriented rock kind of sound. It's not
Hmm.
quite in the glam zone yet. They
Yeah.
haven't got their pirates on acid outfits on yet. um, so yeah, it's definitely a transitional album for the band, but holy shit, they're firing on all cylinders here.
Yeah.
Like this it has an 80s-ness to it, but like I say, more in an early 80s way, in a good way compared to Private Audition, which came out just a year before it. Because
Yeah.
Private Audition sounds like the very confused version of the early 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh fuck, this is new. What are we
This is
doing?
the Passion Works is the album they made after they sobered up and they're like, "Oh fuck. Let's try that again."
Yeah. So yeah, how can I refuse? Incredible song. Should have been a much bigger hit as far as I'm concerned. That is an excellent song. Blue guitar, great powerful pop rock song. Johnny Moon is this cool viber. Sleep Alone is this stomping, hard rocking track that I feel like could have been on the following album,
Hmm.
vibe wise. Together Now sounds like Zeppelin if they never split up and kept going into the 80s. Allies is a huge ballad. Sounds like something Survivor could have done. Um, Beat by Jealousy has some sassy album oriented rock AOR guitars going on. Uh, Heavy Heart has a great chorus to it. Love the harmonies. Love Mistake is this vibey ballad. Language of Love is, again, it's one of those Miami Vice sunset driving scene vibes. And Ambush is an excellent closer, full of 80s tropes such as Simmons' hex pad drums and synth bass galore.
Yeah.
Uh, Really cool song on a really cool album. Honestly, this album really should get a lot more love than it gets.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, upon re-listening to this album, I think this one and Desire Walks On have grown on me the hardest out of this heart deep dive I've been doing for the past month. So
Yeah.
yeah, with that, that wraps up my number 4.
Cool. Yeah, that I agree. I like that album so much that it actually ended up pushing what I think a lot of people would consider their best album to number 4. My number 4 is Little Queen from 1977. And
Which would have been my number 4 if I hadn't done a last minute change. It's an honorary matchup.
all right, yeah. So this one is the one out of all of their early stuff that I feel the most Zeppelin love on this album.
Yeah.
And it's a very strong album with one of their most recognizable songs, Barracuda, which is a fucking banger.
Yeah.
But the my only problem with this is that if I'm holding this album up next to Dreamboat Annie, which are similar in what they're doing, this one feels more uneven to me. Not as well sequenced. There's no bad songs. There's just, and I think it's weighted down by the awesomeness of Barracuda because there's no other Barracuda on this album.
No, there isn't. No.
And so
yeah.
it does feel a little like, all right, when are we going to get back on that track? We're not, but it's still good. I almost feel like you just start after Barracuda and then like the album's like, works a lot better.
Yeah.
But I mean, who the fuck's going to complain about, it's an album with Barracuda on it. So I have to ask you a question, and maybe you don't know it. Maybe you'll have to run and listen to it real quick to answer me. The riff in Love Alive, why does it make me think of a Soundgarden song? Like not the sound of it. I feel like Soundgarden did that riff in one of their original songs. And
what era of Soundgarden are we talking?
Later sound. I feel in my brain it feels like later Soundgarden. And
okay,
I went
stall them. I'm gonna listen to it.
Yeah, go listen to it real quick. Just the riff, and it maybe it's not Soundgarden, but a Soundgarden-ish band did a
Love
song.
Alive, right?
Yeah, Love Alive. And
which part are we talking? Like the riff right at the beginning?
I don't know if it starts immediately, but it's the main riff in the song. Let's give him a moment to listen. And if you're at home or wherever you're listening, pull up Love Alive, and maybe you know the answer.
That sounds exactly like Uncovered from
Yeah. Is that Louder Than Love?
Yeah, that's off Louder Than Love. That's
okay.
Uncovered.
Okay. Is it identical?
Let me have a quick listen. And need a
so it's a little bit of a different rhythm, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's not on folky instrumentation. It's holy shit. Yeah. That definitely sounds...
Is it even in the same key?
This is a breakthrough, man. Soundgarden Uncovered.
Because I mean, and I think it's because I love Soundgarden, but I love that album, and I was like, that song is just one that's in my head. So when I heard this riff, because I'd never heard the album all the way through, I don't think I'd ever heard Love Alive before, and
I'm listening to it as we speak.
Okay.
Down, 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 down. Okay.
No, comparing and contrasting. Getting to the bottom of this. Soundgarden owes them some money.
Yeah, it does sound very similar. That's very. It sounds different because it's uh through a distorted guitar as opposed to an acoustic.
Yeah,
That sounds just different enough to get away with it, but like
yeah.
Heart are from Seattle.
Their
Soundgarden are
song
from Seattle.
their song goes ding 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 ding. Mine goes ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
So yeah, but and to be completely honest, I prefer the Soundgarden song, but I do like Love Alive. So whatever. Sometimes you repurpose, and I wonder if it was an homage or if whoever wrote it didn't even realize it, because that happens at times. Like I've
Yeah.
written songs in my life, even to the point where I've already taught it to the band I was in, where we've already started doing stuff, and then everybody gets a phone call from me. Oh, dude, I figured out I just ripped that off. All right, we're scrapping that song. Because sometimes you don't know, and because a melody or something will come to you in a certain way, and your brain doesn't make the connection.
Yeah.
That's why I never get too pissed off about songs that sound like other songs, because I feel like I can put myself in a situation where I go, I see how that could have just been written by somebody not, subconsciously not really knowing that they actually were borrowing from something else. There are some things that are flat out ripoffs, but other things I'm just like, it happens. There's only so many notes and combos you can throw in, unless you're a prog band, and then you get up your own ass a little too much. But
I remember being in like kind of a funk rock band in college, and I remember coming up with this riff. And we had like an assignment to come up with a song, and I was like, I've been sat on this riff for ages. Bum bum burning, bum bum and then the fucking tutor came in and went, "Hey, you're not covering stuff this lesson, right? You're supposed to come up with something original." I was like, I did. I came up with this riff. I'm like, "Nah, you're about 50 years late, pal. Come together." And I was like, "Son of a bitch."
yeah.
Fuck! I thought I came up with something killer.
I got this brand new song. It goes, "She likes you, whoa, whoa, whoa. She likes you." Somebody already did that?
Yeah. Yeah. I got this track. Let me know what you think. Imagine there's no heaven, even in the same accent.
Why are you? Oh, I didn't know. I was just singing it in John's accent.
Yeah.
I gotta do more of a nasally thing if I want to do John, right? Hey. All right. Where was it? Where were we? Yeah. So we uncovered the connection between Love Alive and Soundgarden. Anyway,
Hey.
Little Queen's great. I start looking at things as albums, and this one out of these top four is the most kind of uneven. But yeah, Barracuda is a fucking certified banger forever and ever. Amen. But
Yep.
but yeah,
GTA San Andreas.
and it's one of those riffs that like everybody that plays guitar has played, many times in their lives, just because
Absolutely.
it feels good. But yeah, it didn't make the top. It had to go at 4 just because the 3 albums that are above this, I just think as albums are just really fucking good, like straight through. So on to your number. Oh wait, your number 3 is Little Queen, right?
It is Lil Queen.
All right,
And
let's do it.
yeah, so my number 3, Lil Queen, obviously the one with Barracuda on it, which, if you're going for 70s, is their signature song, Alone being the 80s counterpart to that. But, it's my first Heart song, having heard it on GTA San Andreas. Well, I probably heard the 80s ones on the radio, around that time, and
Or
years.
knowing your age, you heard them in a supermarket, or
Yeah, yeah, just like really, really reverberated through like a fucking Tesco or an Asda.
I
Going,
yeah, I feel like yeah,
yeah,
I feel like alone. I've heard that every time I've ever gone into a drugstore over here, like a Walgreens or a CVS or whatever over here. That just seems
yeah.
like a song that I have the flu and I'm going to get flu medication, and I walk through the doors and I, well, I can't you now. I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Too bad I
Hiya.
feel like shit. Give me those
Yeah.
lozenges.
uh, but yeah, Love Alive. Love the Zeppelin-esque midsection in this one.
Hmm.
Sylvan song, acoustic, and mandolin interlude, which sets the tone for Dream of the Archer, which is another great folky number. Kick It Out literally kicks ass. Love this rocker. Little Queen's a groovy one. Treat Me Well is a ballady one. Say Hello is an upbeat track. Cry to Me is cool and leads straight into Go On Cry, which, is a real, you know, cry to me. Go on, cry. I love the
Hmm.
way they sequence that because it's like, yeah, you fucking cry to me. Yeah. Yeah. It closes the album out on a smooth, bluesy note. And I mean, it's again, this is a rotating cast of characters as far as I'm concerned, but it landed itself at number 3 this time. Guaranteed the moment we're done with this episode, I'm gonna like bump everything around again because this is one of those rankings I just can't make my mind up. But yeah,
We'll
3,
come back. We'll
Little
come
Queen.
back to it in another 4 years and
Yeah.
and revisit it. Um, yeah. So honestly, my 3 and 2, I was very surprised because it was my first time hearing both of these albums and most of the songs on these albums. So I was
Okay.
surprised with how much I liked them. My number 3 is Passion Works from 1983.
Cool.
Which is their seventh album and a huge improvement from Private Audition,
Absolutely.
which to me is a mess. Yeah, and you said it all. Like it's a step towards '80s hard rock, and it sounds '80s, but it's like that good '80s rock music.
Mhm.
Before bands started getting too poppy with it, and they were still there was a little bit of grit left in it, you know.
Mhm.
And Passion Works is just it's comparatively speaking, it's way more focused with better songwriting, better songs, just period overall, and they all fit together in a nice way. Like the vibe of the album is one that just doesn't let up, and
Mhm.
it's really enjoyable. And I was really vibing to this one where like once it got going, I was just kind of like, yeah. And that didn't stop for the
Yeah.
entire album, where I just felt like, way to go. Like, this is like, it feels good. Like, it's a good rock album from the 80s. And I never even heard of this album prior to doing this ranking. So
Mhm.
you're right, because it's like it's very underrated. Because I'm like, well, why isn't this one that gets the name gets thrown around? Because I don't remember ever hearing people say Heart and then saying Passion Works. But it's great. Like I just overall, like I can't deny what is a good and enjoyable and strong album of stuff. And it kind of the end of an era for them, really. I mean, the transitional era of the early '80s. Once they really kind of like hit reset when the next album is called Heart, and this
Yeah.
is it's like the beginning of a new era, and this is going out on a bang when it comes to that for me because I think it's great. So that's my number 3 from 1983.
Very nice. Cool. So that leads us to the silver medal with number 2.
Okay, hold on. What do you have left? Okay, I think I know. I think I know what your number 1 is, but
Okay.
I'm
My number 2 is Brigade.
mhm.
Yeah. This when I, listening in chronological order, coming off of Bad Animals, and then the moment Wild Child starts, it's like, okay, yeah, yeah, now we're talking. This is the
Hmm.
album that the last one should have sounded like.
Yeah.
This being episode 3 in the kind of hair metal trilogy, I think this as well reclaimed a bit more control for the Wilson sisters. I can't remember if I could be talking out of my ass, but as far as I can remember, this is one where they like reclaimed a little bit of creative control or something, because they do have a little bit more of the folk element in there at points.
Yeah,
But
I mean, maybe they did, but it's still, it's one of those albums where you look at the songwriters and there's shitloads of names in there.
oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. This is still firmly entrenched in the um massive power ballad era,
the
you
Hit
know,
Factory.
the Hit Factory vibe. Except this one I feel has a bit more, for want of a better word, heart to it, because they just
Yep.
generally seem more into this one. Um, Wild Child is this excellent high energy opener. All I want to do is, pardon me, sorry, let me start that again. Fuck. That is a horrible way to come on to someone. So all I want to do is make love to you. A classic, albeit controversial for its time, track. And
Was it?
well, I've heard stories from other people of being like, they said make love to you on the radio. That's fucking, ooh. you know. I've heard
I
some
mean,
people.
it's only 15 years or 10 years after "Feel Like Making Love" was a was a hit song. So
I'm well. I was. What is it? I was listening
maybe
to.
it's
I
because
was
it's a
listening.
woman singing it, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah. Well.
women don't talk that way."
Yeah. Yeah. I think. What is it? I was listening to the other day. I was listening to an episode of like 60 songs that explain the 90s, and it was on the. I think it was the episode where he does, like, the guy that does it does like a bit of a build up where he talks about other songs, like
Yeah.
how we ended up here, and he talks about how his mother was enraged that that Ann Wilson said "make love to you"
Oh,
on a radio track, and was like,
I
"No,
could see
I
that.
can't believe Heart, a band a mother likes, would make such filth," that sort of thing. Not that it's you know there's far more edgy stuff coming out long before this point, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but yeah, still, that being said, Anne doesn't like this song because the lyrics kind of weirded her out a little bit, so whenever she performs it nowadays, she's changed a few lyrics around.
Interesting.
um
I'm curious. I don't know what she would be referring to in the lyrics, but I guess I
it's
haven't paid
there,
much attention.
there's a part later in the track where like she comes across the guy and she's got her kid, but she just doesn't want any involvement, like the guy's there, and she didn't like that. She just didn't like the narrative of the song, so now she sings it differently or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I've the video I watched on it, the interview I watched a while back, so I again, like I say, this is, take what I'm saying with a grain of maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah, but that being said, Secret is a big old power ballad, very clear attempt at, you know, it's 1990 and the power ballad is king.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Tall, Dark, Handsome Stranger. Someone's been listening to some Aerosmith, because I hear a lot of horns on this track alongside some overdriven, distorted guitars. Great song though. I Didn't Want to Need You is another big old ballad. You'll notice a trend here. The Night. Now, I love this song. It might be my favorite song on the album. Whenever this topic of stripper riffs comes up,
Oh
this is one
yeah.
of my favorites.
Yeah.
That dank, 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 like, love that feel. Killer stuff. I think that was a Sammy Hagar co-write, you know, and it
Oh,
being a Sammy Hagar co-write, I'm not surprised by the track's feel whatsoever.
makes sense. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Fallen from Grace is a vocal showcase. That rhymed. Under the Sky harkens back to their more folky stuff, kind of still with like a bit of that 80s sheen on it, but
Yeah.
not as bad animalsy. What else we got here? We got Cruel Nights is a vibey one. Stranded, the big Nancy song of this record. Great power ballad. Call of the Wild is a hooky hard rocker. I Want Your World to Turn is a suspenseful chunk of chugging AOR goodness. And I Love You. I Love You too. This was episode 3 of Glam Metal Heart. But much like all of the bands of the 80s moving into the 90s, there's an air of stack it with ballads, but strip the glam back a little bit, bring the guitars up. I will agree, this album's weakness is its length.
Yeah.
But the songs on it that I love so much that it's definitely, if you were to sequence it in a way where some tracks were placed differently, that this is Heart back at Heart 1985, but with a bit more stripped back aesthetic going on.
Yeah.
I have a thing to bring up though while I'm on the subject of Brigade.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed how this album and Foreigner's Agent Provocateur have the exact same aesthetic going on?
No, because I don't know what that album is.
Right. All right. I want you to look both albums up right now.
Okay.
Like look them up, right? Okay, we're on the fly. We're on the fly here. I have often wondered if it's the same artist or something. Either that or it's just like it worked for them.
Okay, what's the Foreigner album I'm looking for?
Agent Provocateur.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the Apple Music version of it because it animates it. The lines.
Oh, really?
Yep. All right,
Nice.
so then let me go look at Heart Brigade. It's definitely the same sort of color scheme.
Same color palette, and it's a letter. You know, I feel like
I don't know how. I mean, it's simple enough that like I feel like anybody could do that.
Yeah, but like it's just so similar.
Yeah, you were right. An F and an H. I wonder if it was the same artist because that is a very similar idea with similar colors. So, I mean, it's
something I picked up on.
Yeah, that's are there hit songs off that Foreigner album? Because Foreigner's another band that I've never listened to a full album before. So I don't.
Well, that's the one with I Want to Know What Love Is on it. So that was a big album.
Maybe it was a little bit of wishful thinking because they're like, hey, we want to have a hit as big as I Want to Know What Love Is on this album, so let's just make the album cover the same. All right. Anyway.
Cool. Yeah.
Moving on to my number 2. Our top 2 are quite different. My number 2 is Babyless Strange from 1980. Much like Passionworks, I really enjoyed the whole vibe of this album, and it ended up beating Passionworks just because this is, to me, the most full-on rock album they ever made. Like,
agreed. Yeah.
And that did a lot for me because I'm just like, because that's what I want, because my experience with Heart prior to this was just a lot of the hit songs, and none of the hit songs are folky. Like, so when you were introduced to Heart the way that I was, and you hear these folky things, you're just like, why are they doing that? I thought they were a rock band. you know?
Yeah.
And so Baby Lestrange is just, for the most part, a rock album. And it's got such a great energy. My only gripe, and it's a small gripe because it's kind of attached to the time period. There are certain albums where I don't know why they they mix the snare drum so it sounds like it's being hit with a pencil. Like it's got a tiny understated vibe to it. It just doesn't sound necessarily right. Not it's not beefy enough, and it's like the snare Hotter Than Hell. Like it's just
Yeah.
there's this,
Yeah.
and it's not. There's a lot of them. I think there's even if I is it Aladdin Sane by Bowie? Maybe not Aladdin Sane. I don't know which one I'm thinking of, but there's one of his albums that has that same snare sound. And I'm just like, why did anybody want that? Because it
Yeah.
just sounds bad. But once you get over that,
Might be a
it's
cocaine mix.
could be. Um, yeah, once you get past that, there's just so many strong songs on this, and it's just a whole collection of really energetic, really well done, you know, rock from 1980. And yeah, I had never heard any song from this prior to this thing, and I was just like, man, this I'm into this. This is fucking great. And which was probably why I was very let down by Private Audition, because I was like, I like where we're going here, and then I'm like, oh no, what happened? But yeah, I just think Baby Lestranges is great. It's just the whole thing, everything about it, I just think is perfect. I just, because that's what I want from Heart. I want a rock album. They could have a little bit of variety of how they're doing things. That's fine. I don't want it to be just one note, but give me a rock album and just put their two faces on the cover. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they need to do, and I'm in. Which is a nod to what my number one is too.
Cool. Well, with that, it's time for me to gush about my number one.
Yep.
Now, my number one is Heart, 1985.
I had a feeling even before we even started talking about him. I was like, yeah, I feel like this is going to be number one because
Yeah,
ticks all of your boxes, really.
It does. It does. It's the glam metal makeover album, you know.
Yeah.
It's an 80s classic, you know.
And there's and on the cover, whoever it is that's standing on the far right, they look awkward as fuck. And every time I see the album cover, it makes me giggle because I don't know. I'm sure they were just trying to make a picture of everybody, and that dude seems like he just couldn't get his shit together, and so he just looks so uncomfortable or something.
Oh my God!
The guy on the far right.
I've never even thought about it, but yeah, he definitely he doesn't know whether he's like at a Duran Duran or a Dawkins show.
Yeah,
Like
the album covers like that are the kind that I really wish they had just filmed it. So you could just see them all. What are they doing? What are they talking about when they're doing like all of these different poses? Like, Nancy, get on the ground. Okay. It's like, it's just, I want to be a fly on the wall. And you know that guy on the right was like, this just doesn't feel right, man.
well, I will say this. I can tell you one thing that the photographer was saying.
You're just saying that's some good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kicks off with If Looks Could Kill. And Anne is straight up murderous on this hard rocking cut, dude. Like it's an awesome chorus, very montage music, so you know that's a big win for me. What About Love? One of my favorite power ballads of all time.
You want to know a weird pet peeve I have about that song?
Is it the chorus
Yes.
and the syllables in the chorus?
Yes. Because it always feels like they could have done better. Because the actual lead in, what about love? That's so it's so like, yeah, and then it's like, do you
Yeah,
want someone to hear? It's like it literally kind of falls apart, and I'm just like,
yeah.
they literally could have tweaked that and made it even you keep the fist in the air, but it literally just makes it go, yeah, what about love? Do you want something from the store? Because I'm about to go there. It's
And I
very, it
will
just,
never hear that song the same way
so I've always just thought that could have been done better. But once again, it was a huge hit. So who the fuck am I? But I just always think that comparatively, from line one to line two, it doesn't quite carry the same weight.
again.
So I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I have often thought the same thing, but the way the verses set up the what about love part,
Yeah,
like by that point I'm already satisfied, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, it's just a really good song though. um but then you get Never, like what a great song. It's like half Madonna style pop, half Bon Jovi, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking love
I
that.
I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, and then you follow that up with These Dreams. I mean, this album is
Yeah,
stacked,
I like
dude.
that. I like that. That honestly, that might be my favorite from that era of Heart. I don't know what it is about that one. That's probably a nostalgic thing right there. Like remembering that song on the radio, and it just has a nice melodic quality to it.
Yeah, it's just got that like ethereal, dreamlike quality to it. Like even the music video is just so otherworldly,
Yeah.
They're in they're in what, like a desert with a bunch of like Roman ruins around them, and the
Uh,
guitarists are jumping backwards into a body of water, and there's
yeah.
hands coming out of the floor.
It's a and
Uh
the it just something about it, especially the verses. I don't know why they make me feel like I'm in the 80s again. Just the production of the vocals, the way that they're sang and the melody and everything. It just
yeah,
really is a like they got their money's worth out of that. Whoever wrote that one, I don't know who wrote that song, but
yeah.
it to me it's just like a perfect pop song, and of course sung by Ann Wilson, it sounds even better. So
Hmm. Well, this one, I mean, this one's Nancy on lead vocals, but
is
like,
it
yeah, this is Nancy's spot. Yeah, this is her big song
interesting?
off of this. Um,
Wow, that just blew my mind. I've never really paid attention, and I bet, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's clearly not Anne, but I've never really made the. I've just sort of like it's a heart song. I'm just listening to this heart song. Way to go,
it's,
Nancy. That's great.
I will say though, the few times that you see Anne in this video, Anne is just. I mean, I know I keep bringing it up, but Anne is just stunning in this video, man. Like, I remember first time I saw it, it was one of those moments where, you know how, you know how like, you know how like 1940s cartoons, like Tom would Tom would smell like a pie on the counter and start floating,
Yeah,
like your pupils turn into hearts or some shit. That was me the first time I saw this
you're
video,
like
man.
you're like
I was
that.
hypnotized.
You're
Yeah,
like
like
the in that one old cartoon where the wolf goes to like the strip club and his tongue rolls out or whatever,
yeah, hitting himself with a mallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a very nice. It's very nice on the eyes. This video,
I yeah,
such as yeah,
I was yeah, and the I never I was they it's really weird to think back to being a kid in the 80s because I you hear a lot of kids talk about, oh, I had a crush on this artist or this movie star.
yeah,
Um but when I try to think about those things and go, who was it? And it literally was nobody else except Madonna mattered. So Madonna was my thing. So I feel like she ruined it for everybody else because I was just like, well, she's not Madonna. So, I don't know what else I can do. Madonna exists. So nice try. But I don't know.
Yeah, I know that they would much rather be remembered for their music, which, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely. That being said, this is an era that
Yeah.
is an audio visual chef's kiss
Yeah.
from Eddie Sparxx
The
over here.
total package.
Yeah, hell of a package. But yeah, okay, The Wolf, possibly the most outwardly hair metal song that Heart ever put their name to. Like when the first time I heard that song, I was like, more of that, please. And we did get a little bit of that on Brigade. Not really any on Bad Animals, but I mean, All Eyes is this 80s pop rocker. Nobody Home, love this ballad. You can definitely tell that they were going for a Chicago, You're the Inspiration kind of vibe, though. And, as far as I'm concerned, I love that. I love those,
Yeah.
Peter Cetera, Glory of Love style power ballads of the era, just like
Yeah.
optimum cheese factor. But I fucking love that. Nothing at All, one of the album's more underrated singles. What He Don't Know is a laid back rocker. And then closing the album out with Shell Shock. What a killer song that is. I fucking love that. That's I remember the first time I heard it was the B-side on is a B-side on a 7-inch single of What About Love that I just happened upon in the wild.
Oh, okay.
They were selling it. They were selling it in music nostalgia in Truro for like 50p, and I was like, "Oh, I'm fucking having that. Cool."
Yeah.
But I knew the song, so I was like, let's try the B-side. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, fucking metal track.
And
This
it's
is killer.
and that 7-inch, that's a big whole 7-inch. You need to have the
Nah, it's not a big hole. No, it's
interesting.
yeah. Over here, I don't know if that's exclusively an American thing. Sometimes you'll get them, but
Okay, because that is literally a site that is nostalgic for me. The big whole 7-inch, because
Yeah.
that's
the jukebox ones.
so it's so many. That's so much of what I first started getting when I was young.
I've got a few of those. Yeah.
Was it? I mean, I don't have any of them anymore, but I mean, except for ones that I rebought. But I just remember back in the day, it just immediately takes me to, there was a record store in the mall close to my house when I was a kid. That was at Hastings, I think that was the, I don't know if that's what it was, because it changed. I think it changed names at some point, but I think it may have originally been Hastings. But I remember that they had a record player set up and connected to the sound system in the store. And
Yeah.
you were allowed to take a 7-inch off the shelf and put it on and play it so you could like listen to it. And I remember, I just have a weird, it immediately makes me feel like I'm in the store and I'm just all like, oh, let's listen to this new Air Supply single or whatever. You put
Yeah.
it on and it would play in the speakers, and then you would make your decision like, am I into this? Do I want to buy this one? And obviously it wasn't, they weren't referred to as 7-inches. They were 45s. That's what it
Yeah.
was. I'd be like, am I going to buy this 45, or with my allowance money, or beg my mom to buy it for me? And so I don't know. It's kind of it's a tangent, but it's related. But just because I love I don't know what it is. Because nowadays, if somebody puts out a 7-inch and it has the big hole, I'm like, oh, come on, I got to get out my adapter.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's in a drawer, but I'm lazy. I just want to put the record on. But anyway, back in the day, I just look at that and I go, God, this is like my childhood is the big hole with the little yellow adapter looking thing in it. And I'm like, man. Anyway. That's the childhood. That's my childhood right there.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that is my number one. So over to
Sweet.
you.
But I love how we both had the beginnings of, yours is the beginning of the sort of second era of Heart with their self-titled, and
Yep.
mine is legit their first album, Dreamboat Annie from 1975. So this is one where it's it gets it gets its points from both ends because like the last two albums I talked about that were just really strong, had a great vibe, full on solid album that I enjoyed from beginning to end. This one is that also has Magic Man and Crazy on You on it. So
Yeah.
it's got these big songs, which I'm going to go on record and I say I think Crazy on You is the best Heart song of the 70s. I love it. And everything from the way it's the way she sings it all the way to that riff that just I just love that. So that one's already a strong song. But the whole album, the way that it plays out, I was just really impressed with the variety of songs on it because it's got rockers and it's got folky things on it, but it's done in a way where it holds my attention from beginning to end. And I'm just like, wow, this is really like for the band that they were in the early days, they really nailed it like right from the get-go with the kind of songs they wanted to do, but presenting them in a really well done album, like a very strong debut album. And I just that's pretty impressive to me that for any band to like come out with something because there's always the things that people say about you had years to write your first album, but sure, but not all first albums are good though. It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much time you have if sometimes making the first album is what inspires you to actually write better songs and do better shit. But in some cases, you just have your shit together. And there was already just a real sort of magic between the Wilson sisters and the guys they were playing with. Like it's just great sounding 70s rock. And, every time I would, once I had kind of a ranking together, I dipped over to like, different songs on different albums. And this was the one that every time I'd be like, this is just so great. And it
Yeah.
was their first album. So I had to put it at number one just because I was all of those reasons. I was very, very impressed with how strong their first album was because you're kind of led to believe that Little Queen is the big one because it's got Barracuda. So I was prepared for this to be like the first Rush album. The first Rush album is really good, but they build upon that. But this one, I was just like, man, they already had it all nailed down here. They knew who the fuck they were and what they were doing, and so just let's set them off, let them go. And so yeah, so Dreamboat Annie is my number one, which I love it. We've 10 years apart. We've have the 80s and the 70s
Hell yeah.
represented in the top. I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Killer stuff. So yeah.
And so now we're done with Heart. And as we usually do, we do this. 3, 2, 1. Yeah!
Yeah!
We did it!
Yeah!
Yeah.
Just when you thought it was over.
All right. So that's Heart. That was a beefy two-parter.
That was a beefy two-parter. That was very beefy two-parter.
And if I'm not mistaken, our last two-parter of this year of
Yeah.
2023, because
It's the fact that we're hurtling towards 2024 is just frankly a frightening prospect.
yeah,
That is like we started doing this in
2020.
June 2020. and this it's fucking wild
It'll be
that
going to
this
our
much
fifth
time
year. Our
is.
fifth year doing this is what we're
It's
going into.
insane. It's
Yeah.
insane. Like,
Yeah. Who would have thought?
yeah. But you know what? I'm fucking proud of this body of work, man. That we are just building. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing is that, I keep thinking to myself, yeah, when there's a huge, nuclear disaster and people need entertainment, I'm like, oh wait, they probably won't have the internet. So I'm like, never mind. But if something happens where I don't know, there's another
we
pandemic, hopefully not.
yeah.
But like or something, and you need hours and hours and hours, literally probably months of entertainment.
At
Um,
least at least a few weeks. Like,
yeah,
actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, like some of our episodes are upwards of like 2.5 to 3 hours.
yeah,
So yeah, there's probably plenty. That there's definitely days, weeks, possibly months
yeah
of at
of
this point.
content, and
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy. But and one day maybe we'll get compensated. But I don't. I'm just like I hear other podcasts and they all start off with like sponsorships or all these different things. And I'm just like, why does nobody contact us? Like,
Maybe we
I
need to do some networking, appear on some other shows.
oh, I don't want to talk to people. Um, and
And therein
therein
lies the
lies the problem.
problem.
So
Uh,
yeah. All right, cool. Well, that was that. So yeah, we've got a few shows left before the end of the year, and like we discussed last time, we're going to do a holiday episode / Christmas episode, however you want to, Hanukkah episode. I guess it's not Hanukkah. Well, it is Hanukkah, but it's not that particular day. Anyway, we celebrate all holidays and no holidays at the same time, and yeah, we've got two two more bands we're going to do this year.
yeah.
One very lesser known,
Mhm.
and the other one of the most known.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it'll be nice. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. I'll
It's a
let
nice
I'll let the listeners try and or the watchers, whoever,
ooh,
whichever
the
side of
peanut
the
butter platypuses.
yeah, whichever side of the coin y'all are on, uh, who are the most known or among the most known? There's quite a few there, but I'll let
Yeah,
them.
when I say most known, the band that comes to mind isn't who we're doing, but we'll get around to them. But
Yeah,
they're probably in the top five that people would throw out their name.
yeah,
Um, and
big band.
big deal. But yeah, so yeah, we got a handful of shows left to go this year. So thanks everybody for listening and watching and everything. And we should be back next week with the
Yeah,
next kind of short band ranking, but one that is actually two bands, but really
yeah,
one band with two names, and we both really like them. And
yes,
they're a band that should be talked about more. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be dedicating a whole episode to this two in one band or one in two band or some shit like that. Anyway, all right, cool. That'll be next time. At this
hmm
point, we're done. Thank you for being here. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Edward J. Sparxx. I don't know why I gave you the J.
Well, my
um,
middle name is James, so
oh well, there we go. Maybe that's where
there you go.
maybe it's in my brain somewhere. Anyway, James Tiberius Sparxx. To that's Captain Kirk's middle name. Isn't that right? Yeah, James Tiberius Kirk, I think is his name. I'm not even a Trekkie, and I know that. That's so fuck. That's common knowledge. Anyway, Eddie Sparxx is now going to take us out.
Later, dude goes on when I finish the episode. every second of the outro. I try and find something that works. Please help.
I thought you were gonna do. I thought you were gonna do a later, dude. Don't you have a good time listening to our podcast?
Saved it. There
All
we
right, bye
go.
everyone.